Today on Strong Like a Girl, we walk a little bit down memory lane with the impressive Karen Lam before delving into the world of horror films, entertainment law, fashion design, and cats. We love the cats. About 10 years ago, my beloved cat Matilda had an inoperable cancerous tumor in her stomach. I was very distressed about this and had seen Karen's own trials with a similar situation, so I reached out over Facebook to my old high school friend. She responded and helped me with the very difficult events that followed. I'm very grateful for her kindness. We have not spoken in person since our high school years. Looking back, she always had this air of perfection in my mind. Visually stunning, smart, an incredible artist, great style, funny, kind, and confident. And that's what I remember her to be like from high school. She was just, cool. She went on from our Vincent Massey High School in Brandon, Manitoba, Canada, to build a career in fashion, law, and now film. She is the trifecta of accomplished. Just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, she has directed 10 short horror films, 3 music videos, series directed 2 seasons of true crime series Very Bad Men for Discovery, and in 2023 won the Directors Guild of Canada BC Established Director Greenlight Award. It is my pleasure to welcome the incredible Karen Lam to our show today. She is creating space in the horror film genre, and I'm really looking forward to learning about how all of this transpired. Welcome to Strong Like a Girl, Karen. It's very nice to see you.
You too.
So, what have you been up to for the last 37 years?
Oh my God, seriously. I mean, apart from, this is the only good thing about social media is actually this. This is, I would say, the few things. Oh, my cat's left already. He's doing his thing. But I it's been so long, and it's so funny that you would actually think I was cool. I was such a dork in high school. So that's how it's funny, because I think we all look back at ourselves, and that's not, you know what I mean, the experiences, because you were complete, you were everything I was not. You were you were coordinated, you were athletic, you seemed to have your life together, and I always felt you were anyway, and you kicked my butt in floor hockey. I remember that. It's just you know what I mean? Well, you went for the ball. That's what I was going to say. Or I was like, oh, don't pass that ball over here. So
I'm slightly competitive, probably a little bit. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, social media is a good thing for that. And I think it's interesting that we're connected, but we literally have not had a face-to-face conversation in 37 years, right?
No, I know. Has it been that long? God.
Well,
it's been,
I think if you do the math, it's right in there.
Sort of, I think we hover over each other's lives where you're like, so-and-so is they've had a baby. I get to see what you're doing and what you're wanting to share. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it's one of the pluses for sure.
Yeah.
So you were born in Brandon.
No, I was born in Toronto. You
were born in Toronto. So how did your family end up in Brandon?
Well, my dad's a prof, so I was born in St. Michael's in Toronto. He was doing his PhD at U of T at the time, and after that, he was looking for a teaching position, and he had a choice between Memorial in St. John's or Brandon University. So guess where I grew up?
Yeah. So how old were you when you moved to Brandon?
2. So we went back to Hong Kong for a brief amount of time. So after my dad got his PhD, my parents moved back to Hong Kong when I was 6 months old, and we immediately dropped into Brandon at 2 years old when I was 2. So
do you have any siblings? I don't even think I know if you have siblings.
Yeah, I have a younger sister, Vicky, and we're all in Vancouver now. So it's been it's been quite a number of years, but it's and by the way, I have site laryngitis, so I had whatever the hell that was. Sorry, whatever that was that actually took out my voice. So anyway, so it's not quite me, but sort of me, 70% me.
So when we grew up, there wouldn't have been very many minority families in Brandon. No. Was there an experience, growing up in a very rural, small town, white bread, Manitoba conservative town for your family?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've thought about this because a lot of my friends who grew up in Vancouver have such a different experience with being Chinese and the culture than I do. I really was told at a very early age to just assimilate. So, I didn't have a lot of Chinese friends growing up. I knew that I had two lives because basically I every few summers I would go back to visit my grandmother in Hong Kong. So then that would be that life, but it was very urban and it was very different. And then Brandon was my real life. And when I moved to Vancouver, like again, I think there was blips that there, you're not Mennonite after all.
Yeah.
So I joined Wayfarers, basically for the summer sausage and to make crafts. So I really was into all of that. So I think it was always a surprise whenever they'd some teacher, there'd be culture days. I forget, we had celebrate your heritage days of some sort. And I always thought, well, I'm a pioneer, so I really didn't understand that I might have been somewhat different. And then they'd call you out like, oh, well, the little Chinese girl over there. And I'd be like, who is that? It's like, oh, it was me.
That's interesting.
And so, but there was I guess there were some internal things that I never, I guess I never rectified on some level. Like, for example, if we were doing a play, I never thought, oh, I could be the lead. I was always like, dancing bush in the background. Or I worked I always worked behind the scenes. So when we had all of our musicals, we did My Fair Lady and, Fiddler on the Roof and that. I was always like wardrobe, which is where I, started with loving clothes. And, just working usually backstage. And my friends who were Chinese who grew up in Vancouver, they were like, well, I was Hamlet. I was like, well, how could you be Hamlet? You know what I mean? Like we hadn't, the representation in front of the camera and on stage wasn't to the degree that it is now. So, that the idea of diverse casting wasn't a big thing. So I always thought, well, Hamlet's like Danish. So, how could you be Danish? So there was a lot of, I was just surprised when I got to law school here. So the reason I moved to Vancouver was actually to go to law school. And that was my first time, I think, actually confronting the fact that I was Chinese. The Asian Pacific Law Group called me and I was like, how the hell did you know I was like Asian? And they were like, pretty clear.
Yeah.
As we all had our photos, right? And I was like, oh, so I felt a little like, how did you call me out for this? And so, again, I always felt like I was sort of behind how they can all, like they all had Chinese school on the weekend. So they're literate. I'm not, I can barely, I speak Cantonese Chinglish. And so it's just interesting that it's never really formed a big part of my storytelling either. So I'm not sure why that's actually been.
That's really interesting. I wanted to ask you about that because I have a friend of mine who is very dark-skinned and married to someone who is not, and he'll tell you that even today, going to the grocery store, people will approach them and say things, and I am just aghast at that because I don't like. He just looks like my friend to me, right? And I don't remember you being Asian, if that makes any sense, right? Like,
I know.
I just remember you being Karen. So.
Yeah.
I was interested to know if you had a different experience here as a growing up person in our culture here.
I was very lucky, and Brandon was actually in many ways, apart from I would say a couple of odd racist incidents, that I never felt that for my friends. I always felt like I was just Karen too, I never felt like I just knew that sometimes I ate weirder food and I very much didn't like that. So to this day, I like mashed potatoes more than rice. So,
nice.
it's always been.
Me too.
Yeah. And I had a love for lasagna from day one. So I don't, and I still make a mean cabbage roll. So just so we know, I guess in some ways, like I always felt, if anything, I felt weirder coming to Vancouver where there's a 48% Asian population that I felt like I didn't really fit with them either. My experiences were so different. And I have actually had when I first moved here, I remember having breakfast with a fellow filmmaker who was from Calgary, and he was like, don't take this the wrong way, but it's like talking to a white prairie dude with you. And I was like, oh, what does that mean? So, but I think that in a lot of ways, like now it's considered very offensive to say like, oh, I don't see color, like I don't recognize your differences. But I really felt that growing up to a large degree. I don't know if I really connected to what that was. And so, it's still I think it'll be a lifelong thing that I'm dealing with as far as there's that. So
maybe there's some beauty in that for you as well, right? In some way.
Yeah. I think so. And and the odd time that I would experience something racist. I've had that in Vancouver too, by the way. It's not like it's not
Sure.
because it's a small prairie town. It just always is very jarring. It's like, oh, who, me? in my head, I was like, the rude phrase of it is that, well, you're a banana, you're yellow on the outside, but you're pretty white on the inside. And
Yeah.
so again, a lot of these things aren't squaring, I think, in some ways with how the dialogue in the society has really shifted. And so I do think it's probably generational, and the
Yeah.
idea of embracing your diversity and again, it's something that I think my idea was just tamp it down.
Yeah.
It's there. It's just like it's a
Sure.
flavor of sorts,
Yeah, for sure.
So
So you went to Vancouver out of high school to go to law school?
I went from Vancouver so I did my first degree at BU, and then I did a year in at it's not Ryerson now, but Metropolitan for fashion design. Dropped out and was the only fashion school dropout in law school. So I panicked. I was really like, I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought I was going to be a fashion designer, and it was not an industry that really I felt very happy in. And so I wrote my LSAT and I got into, I think, York and UBC, and I was like, I've never been to Vancouver, so I landed, and all of a sudden, apparently, I became Chinese, and I didn't have that experience in Toronto for some reason. But Vancouver was it's very heavily Asian, so that was new, and a strong voice of it. So they kept saying, like, what happened to you? Like, why are you not like the rest of us? And so if anything, that's where it's like you're sort of amongst your people, but you're so different that it was shocking.
I remember you and your sketch pad doing lots of drawings of and dresses or things like that, clothing and stuff like that. So did you have a career in fashion?
No,
No.
I never did, but I still to this day, like I took up knitting, so I've been like hardcore knitting, so I'm wearing my sweater. And I actually during the pandemic, I actually started drawing again, and I took up I just started oil painting. 2023 was really instrumental. We sort of came out of like our little cocoons, and I was just going to lean into all the things I hadn't done or wanted to try. I called it my year of mediocrity. Like I started pottery. I suck at it, so yeah, that was a no-go. But I started painting again, which I hadn't done since I was, like in high school, basically.
Yeah.
And I got into my first show at Port Moody in the summer, so I was really happy. Yeah, it was nice to be in a group showing, and I went from painting really creepy, dark things, which you might remember, to basically doing flowers. I thought smushy flowers like Georgia O'Keeffe would be much more safe for me, and yeah, it was nice.
Huh. So obviously you're highly creative. So you did a career in law, contract law?
No, insurance.
Really?
Yeah, it was I did so much sewage breakages for the municipality. It was hilarious. It was like, oh crap, I'm dealing with crap, literally. So
Wow.
I was on defense side, so it was basically if you sued your insurance company, that was me. So yeah, no,
Really?
I didn't. That was not a. I loved my colleagues, and I love law for basically my smart lawyer friends, but I
Yeah.
myself was not an accomplished lawyer. So I ended up going into the film industry. I they take all of us, it's this ragtag sort of group. But I ended up working at Creative BC as in-house legal counsel, and I put together the tax credit program. So it was it's a weird, circuitous career, isn't it?
So how did you go
Ridiculous.
from working within the industry to creating within the industry?
Oh, I do call it, I use this phrase judiciously, failing upward. One year, I was in business affairs for a long time. Then, because I worked first at British Columbia Film, which is now Creative BC, and then I got headhunted by PricewaterhouseCoopers to work in the tax credit division. And then I started producing. So producing is a sidestep because you can, I mean, it's creative, but it doesn't have to be. So people would hire me on to do the business affairs side of things and to put together the deals. Like I'm pretty good with contracts and that. And it wasn't until all my projects one year just blew up, and I was like, oh no, what am I gonna do? And I think I was applying to go back into like, okay, fine, I'll go back into arts administration, and I had a rough idea for script. A friend of mine helped me like just format it. I wrote it and I sent it into the National Screen Institute, which is in Winnipeg, and I got the drama prize, which was I think gave $30,000 in training for 5 short film projects, and mine was one of the ones picked. So that's where I started writing and directing. And I was fighting it every step of the way. I wasn't planning to write or direct. now I can't imagine doing anything else. I've been now doing it longer than anything else. Like my parents were so worried that I was just going to hop from career to career, like just, I didn't stay in anything longer than a couple of years. And so,
yeah, I know. Yep.
yeah,
Same.
yeah, just a little, it's like, oh, that didn't suit right. It just didn't feel right. But I think what I love about the film industry and what I love about what I do is that every project is different, and so it does satisfy that itch of, I don't have to be doing one thing like at any given time. I did work in television writing for 2 seasons. So I did first season of Van Helsing and first season of Ghost Wars in the writing room, and that was way too close to a day job for my liking. It was like 10 weeks with the same group of people, and I was like, this is a day job, can't do it.
Fair enough. So I have long loved the entertainment industry. I'm an avid television and movie watcher, and for most of my life. However, I don't watch a lot of horror films, and to be honest, I really steer very clear of them. I don't like to be scared. I'm prone to nightmares, and would probably say highly suggestive. So if I watch it, then it kind of comes back up for me, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So, but I did, having said all that, I did watch 2 of your short films because I thought, well, I better take a look at this. So I watched Doll Parts, and I'm not sure if I'm going to say this right. Chiral,
yes.
Chiral, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I thought they were really good, by the way. I really enjoyed Doll Parts very, very much. Chiral was a bit, I was like, oh, okay, this is a bit freaky.
It's weird. That was a bit, I went surreal on that one. That was following the death of my father. It was a weird time.
Oh, really?
So yeah, I think I went, I think I lost it for a couple of years, but I'm good now.
Wow.
Happens, you know how it is.
Yeah. Grief shows up all different ways and forms in many coats.
It definitely, and I have to say that the most important thing I think about working in storytelling is that I think that sometimes with films and with TV shows, we're just repeating what we think we want to see. Like, this is what grief looks like. This is what, this is what survival looks like. This is like, when I think of grief, I think, oh, this is like these sad people crying around the thing. My family has, like, I think we're like the Addams family, but Asian. So it was like the most uplift. Like, people were, we went to the funeral home, I remember, and, they had the tissues ready for us. And we were howling. Like, I think we were not okay. Like, maybe we were just in this other spot. It was like, so like, it was a Chinese funeral in some ways, and a memorial for my dad. And so we were looking for, you can burn things, like, basically, like to take for the afterlife. And so you could pick, they had a whole room of paper things that you could burn. And so I remember we were like, well, he's not going to want to serve it, and I don't care about that. And he doesn't want the gold Mercedes Benz, but the TV he's going to want, so we were like, so we were shopping for like, well, he'll want American cash and Canadian cash, like, so they had all these representations of like money for the future, and stuff like this. It's like, well, should we put him in like does he love fishing? I was like, well, do we put him in like a little fishing tackle box? Like, what's going to work for this? And I remember I was like, and the woman I kept thinking, but this is not appropriate. Like, this is not an appropriate expression of grief. And even for me, like, I think I lost my hearing for 4 years, and I didn't know that. It was almost like I was listening to everything in a bubble. Like, do you remember the Love and Rockets video? It was for Ball of Confusion, and your head is just this buzzy thing. So I was very buzzy, and I remember my heart rate just being really high. And I didn't realize that I didn't have my hearing for however long, and I couldn't write anything. I mean, I could write in the TV writing room, which tells you a lot, and I made chiral during that period. Yeah. And so I feel like I was in an almost like a fugue state. Like, I couldn't really, my writing is very much like channeling, where I have no idea, it's a blank page and just let it go. But when I was in that state, I couldn't go anywhere except for, like, I was writing in a TV room is almost like paint by numbers, where you're filling in, like, you work as a group, you have an outline, you're writing in the dialogue, but it wasn't the same thing as me channeling in some way. So I wonder, sorry, I went off topic there, but that's...
No, you're fine. I was, I didn't realize, so for a Chinese funeral, you burn things so that they can take them in the afterlife?
Yeah. So it's like, I remember, like, with my grandmother, she loved she loved horse betting. So we made sure she had her chits. She had
Yeah.
pencil, and she's basically facing, like, she's in Hong Kong, so she faces the jockey club so that she could always have her horse races.
I love that. I love
So
that.
it's kind of like soothing in some ways. So maybe that's
Yep.
what half of it was that. And then for the actual memorial, I had my friend Bonnie basically do like a kind of a slideshow of my dad, and she scanned a lot of his photos, and we played his favorite Simon and Garfunkel. So literally, it was like Cecilia and Sound of, like, you
Nice.
know what I mean? There was
Yeah.
Mrs. Robinson. He loved all these songs, and that was his favorite album. So we just played that. And so I guess it was more joyous than anything, but it took I think I was probably in a low grade fugue depressive state for four
Yeah.
years, and I didn't know until one day my ears popped and I could hear. It was the oddest
Really?
thing. I was like, yeah, I was writing the Curse of Willow Song. I was doing a rewrite on it, and I thought, you know what, it's time. I should make another feature film. And it was almost like my ears just cleared and I could write again, but it took 4 years.
That's kind of
So you,
amazing.
so you
Really.
don't know. Again,
No,
I've never
you
seen that
don't.
in how grief is. Like, people seem to have the same state, and good for you if that's your state. It wasn't mine. So I always
I,
think to people, if you need to ululate, if you need to wear a, like, like you want to be in Victorian black for however many months, whatever you need to do, or if you don't feel like, because people kept saying, why aren't you grieving the right way? And I kept
yeah.
thinking, well, what's the right way? Like, what's the
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
there's no prescribed method for how you're supposed to feel at any given time. And it's funny because I still in some ways I'm closer to I was always closer with my
Huh.
dad, but closer to him now. Like, we have conversations regularly. Sometimes I feel like, oh, it's right there. I screwed up again.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I think, yeah, grief is, like I said, I think it's different for everybody and it shows up differently. And again, similar to you, I don't think there's any prescribed method that works for every single person, and
Hmm.
whatever gets you through, whatever gets
Yeah.
you through.
I- It's
Yeah.
a metaphor for our lives as well. I mean, there's no prescribed way for how you should live, and maybe there's
Right.
no prescribed way for how your career should go. You just
Yeah.
kind of, like, I think we both basically, was it, followed the whatever that pull actually is. You're kind of like, okay, not this
Yeah.
anymore, it doesn't fit, how about this, and then see where it goes.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So what drew you to horror films? Because it's not female dominated, right?
No, no, apparently not. There's days where I've stood there and thought, this is Sausage Factory. What am I doing here?
Yeah.
But it's great. I could probably look back at my dad as well. Like, he was most of the fairy tales he told me when I was little, he just sort of warped in a really dark way. So
Huh.
we watched a lot of, I mean, he loved like, he loved action films. So it was like Charles
Yeah.
Bronson, and a lot of, like, basically films where people got decapitated a lot. And so we would watch these spaghetti westerns, or we would watch, like, really quite violent action films and scary films, and we would eat meat snacks. So to this day I have a package of, like, pepperoni, and I watch, like, really gory things and eat meat snacks with it. So it's pretty much part of my DNA at this point. But yeah, it was always like, my dad loved that. My mom, like, also, she did it on a literary side. I think one of the first books she gave me was Edgar Allan Poe's Tales of Mystery and Imagination, but it was like the simplified version. So I was 8 years old or 9 years old. So it was like, in Hong Kong, they have these readers. So in order for kids to like ESL, learn English, they would take classic books and abridge them, and then have, like, they were like almost easy to read versions of it. So you'd get the thing, so for a kid, I would start off reading some fairly adult themed books. So I remember reading Rebecca, Daphne du Maurier, but in a simplified version, and so
Yeah.
much younger than I probably should. So that whole gothic, gothic horror, and yeah, that was pretty much in the DNA. So I think when it came to making films, I was always drawn. I liked watching them. Oh, and I can remember in grade 10, we'd dare ourselves. Remember at noon, we'd have, like, movie viewing things, and we always had, like, Amityville Horror and stuff like that. And so
Yes.
I remember seeing, like, Amityville Horror, Nightmare on Elm Street, and you were always daring each other to see these things. So I think that was probably part of it.
So when I watched your films, and again, not I don't watch a lot of horror films, but it seemed very much like there's, like, very strong women characters in it. Like, I don't remember very many movies like that I have watched where the women are the ones that are the villains, for lack of a better word, but certainly not the victims. Like, it's like, even with Doll Parts, like, you think she's the victim, but when you watch the rest of it, she is not the victim.
Yes.
So is that, like, that feels not abnormal, but out of context for horror films as normal, I guess I would say.
I think in a lot of ways, the term they have in horror is the final girl. So a lot of times the one who survives often is the smart woman. And so it's interesting. Or the unlikely woman, the one who didn't take a shower or take off with the jock. You know what I mean? Like, if you're looking at that sort of way. But I would say that it is in some ways more feminist than you would think, despite sometimes, some imagery and some, like, people who complain about horror films to me often say, oh, isn't that just a whole bunch of women getting slaughtered? I mean, you could argue that with true crime too. It's like, don't light up a room when you walk in. It's always the husband. It's like like, it's the antidote to Hallmark. It's like, well, sure, you thought he was a prince, but he's gonna throw you, like, don't go on that cruise. You're gonna fall over the edge. You're gonna go missing after you've lit up the room karaoke. So there's that. But I would say that probably because I do write. I think I'm drawn to horror as almost a. It's often elevated what I do in the idea that there's usually some political or some reason that I'm writing it. I tend not to write things just for the sake of it. There's something I'm trying to express on some level. So Doll Parts led to my second feature, Evangeline, which is, looking at female revenge horror as a trope, but also as, well, if you took a more feminist slant on it, like I do look at things like, I don't, in Doll Parts even, just the idea of rape revenge, and a lot of times you're watching these things and it feels very exploitative because you're spending the whole time, sexually exploiting a woman, and then, the revenge is a small part of it. And I just thought, how do I desexualize something like that? Because sexual assault is not sexy. It's actually assault. So I just wanted to make sure that's what came across. And over again, it's where you put the camera, how you want to see it. So, the perspective is from her as much as I possibly can, and how you make it so that it's not sexy.
Yeah, I think you achieved that. It was, I mean, I was rooting for her at the end. I was, you're right. And which is kind of an interesting thing to root for murder, but you're just like, seemed to go well,
Yeah. And it's definitely a different place than I've been, like, as far as how do you put it, like, I don't know whether or not that's where I would tell, like, again, we're evolving as we go along the way. And rape revenge was something that was very, like, it was first and foremost, I think, for me at that stage of my life, as far as how I was looking at gender equality and like how society looks at it. And I'm not saying we're past that, because, Me Too happened in 2018 or so, and it's shifted some of the conversation. And then I had different things to say, and different, again, different, I don't know if I could make Evangeline again, and I don't know if I could make Doll Parts again. That actually, I wrote Doll Parts in, visiting my grandmother, basically, when she was dying. So sorry, this ended up a very deathly podcast, but I was in Hong Kong and visiting my grandmother. Like, she was pretty well in palliative at that point, and I had a lot of days to myself, and with the jet lag and everything, and I was reading some short stories, and it was a rape revenge story, and it was very, very much not gratuitous, but I would say that it was all about the male perspective of his revenging, someone dear to him. And the woman is almost used as a trope, like, it's your daughter, it's your wife that you're avenging, as compared to, well, can you avenge your own death? And that's really where I started from.
Well, and I think great art comes from dark places, right? I know I like to write, and for me, if I'm in a very good mood and super happy, I cannot write, right?
Mm-hmm.
But similar to you, like, it flows out of me when I'm fairly low and dark. Yeah, I can. So
maybe that's why writers
easily
take up, like, you end up drinking or just being really depressive or something. Because if you're too happy, it's like, oh, sunshine, lollipops,
Yeah,
just thinking to myself, like, does Taylor Swift write, like, terrible music at this point because she seems somewhat happy? Like, I don't know. It's like, it's not a burn book
not
anymore.
So far. Not so far. So Horror often amplifies cultural anxieties, gender, technology, isolation. Are there specific issues that you like to explore isolated from the ones that we've just talked about?
Right now, I mean, I think that the top of mind for I think what I'm interested in, at least on the projects that I'm just working on now, is just that this idea of technology is very interesting to me, and
Mm.
also this idea that there really isn't a left and right. When I think of socio-political problems, I think it really is this idea of wealth inequality is actually a huge component, that we think it's left and right, but really that's just for us to keep fighting amongst ourselves and not see the fact that it is really, really unfair. And so
Yeah.
what we think of as being, it's easy to blame each other when really we should be blaming the fact that there are basically 1% of this world that have everything, and we're supposed to be scrapping over the leftovers. And that doesn't, again, you can blame each other for why there's so little, but really, if we turned upward, I think we'd be all singing Les Mis. There'd be like guillotines coming out. So sorry, that's so cheery, isn't it?
No,
Just
no,
my
you're
thought.
fine. You're fine.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, lots of them also cover morality, human psychology, which I certainly saw in your films. What do you
Mhm.
aim to communicate about your personal feelings about human nature through your work?
Oh, I when I think about it, it's usually I guess I look at things in like little bite-sized pieces. There's always something that is like I'm dealing with. Like in my third feature, Curse of Willow Song, I was looking, and I wasn't doing it on purpose. It was really about the microaggressions of being. It was my first feature film that I set in the Chinese community, and so I think I finally had something to say about it. And so that was the first time I really, and it got into the first time getting into a bunch of Asian film festivals, which I've never really been. I guess in some ways part of. I've always been in horror and in feminist film festivals, but I tended not to be an Asian because there wasn't anything that in my subject matter that was. So it was funny because when it got released, it was at the same time the pandemic had just started. So I filmed it in 2018, but we didn't release it until 2020. It took 2 years in post, and at that point there was all this Asian hate, and it felt like it was the right film at the right time. So there sometimes your film hits at the right moment. And the film that I just finished is Armageddon Road, which is actually based on a like it's set in the 1970s. Oh, hi, baby. And
This is Molly.
sorry.
No,
Oh
no,
my
this is
goodness,
Molly.
she a Maine Coon? She's
No,
gorgeous.
she's a
No,
long-haired tabby cat with a big personality.
it's lovely to see. What was I say? Oh yeah, so with Armageddon Road, we I wrote it right after my dad passed actually, and it was almost like in a fever dream. And it's book based on the book of Revelation,
Oh,
and
is
it's
it?
set in the 1970s in Vegas, and it's a dark comedy, horror adjacent, but not really horror at all. And
Hmm.
it's really about the end of the world, but also some things that we don't really think about is when we think of the book of Revelation, we think of it as a book of fire and brimstone and the world ending. But really, the book is about revealing that our governmental systems aren't serving us, and that they are actually kind of all fraudulent in a lot of ways. And if anything, the end of the world and judgment comes, it's basically mankind being shown that the systems are corrupt, so
Hmm.
that all the prophecy that's around that is basically seeing that the corruption and the rot is from the institutions that we've come to know that we shouldn't really trust, and that they've been in a lot of ways corrupted. And so Revelation isn't, it's when we think apocalyptic, it's more Armageddon, where that's why it's called Armageddon Road. It's this idea that we're coming to a place. And so the two characters, one of them is a human, like he's the driver. And actually, it's funny because my lead in that is Brian McKegg, and he actually comes from Bertle. So, oh my
Really?
God, like, yes, well, we met
Another
in Vancouver, and I
another
had no idea. And
Manitoban.
so, yay! So it's like, and my co-lead, Natalie Grace, her whole family, she's Mennonite. Her family comes from Altona. So I feel like, you just
Yeah.
only work with Manitobans at this point. Go, go. And so, but it's interesting because that to me is something that I didn't think, like when I wrote it in 2014, it didn't seem to make a lot of sense. But given that it feels like the world is currently a bit of a tire fire, I feel like right now that's what it's saying, which is I want to give, in this case, a little bit more hope to where we're at, and maybe to look at this idea that, there is divine love that's beyond, I guess that's my more spiritual side of things, which is there's love if we look beyond, the systems that are there. So I always have something to say. And so it's hard because right now I've just finished, and I also finished a short film called Mrs. Chang's Perfect Teeth, which is actually about immigration. And I filmed it for the first time in languages I didn't speak. So it's Cantonese, which I do speak, but in Mandarin as well, which I don't. And so it's kind of a mishmash of everything. But it is about this young immigrant girl who comes to Canada, and she ends up working. It looks like she's being trafficked, but she's actually working in a foot massage place, and she realizes she's not getting ahead, and the solution is dental. So I leave it sort of there. So,
is it available to watch?
Not yet. It just played this weekend, actually, at the Vancouver Asian Film Festival. So again, I'm Asian apparently. So yeah, it's a full circle.
It's a big surprise.
Yeah.
What role does empathy play in horror?
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge portion of it. I think if you don't take the time to care about your main characters, then it's just a brutal onslaught of things. You know what I mean? And I'm not interested in just slaughter for the sake of slaughter. I think that if you don't feel the danger and the dread for your characters, you haven't done a good job as a filmmaker. I really do want you to care about the people that are in it. So I have a great deal of empathy, even for my villains. Like I have to. It's sort of like you should be able to watch it from their perspective and really understand it. So
that's very interesting. I was just going to ask you: are we meant, when we watch your films, are we meant to sympathize with the victims, or the villain, or both?
I think you should be able to see the point of both. You should hopefully be with the victim or the hero in my cases, because the victim is often also the hero. But I think you should be able to also see hopefully the humanity in, like, to me, evil isn't, I mean, there are true sociopaths out there, and I've done profiles on them when I was working in true crime, but for the most part, they're failed by the system too. I think that we're all kind of, it's our experiences, because there are sociopaths who function quite well in this world, and then there's some that end up sort of homicidal. That's where the system's gone very, very wrong. I just think that, again, basic rights for everybody, and I wonder whether or not with just making sure that our basic human rights are taken care of, clean air, clean water, food, shelter, education, those are the things. And then after that, any support that you can give. I'm not saying that, we should mollycoddle, because having done some work in true crime, I'm thinking not all of us are rehabilitatable. I had a couple of
I agree with
those
that.
cases as well. But I would say that a lot of times there's just systemic failures that happen. So
when you write, what's your process? Are you able to sit down and write a movie in a weekend?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
But but it takes a while to get there. I usually noodle around, and what I tend to do is, like, for some writers, they'll write an outline or something. I tend to free flow a little bit. So I write what feels like a short story to myself. So it's almost like I'm telling a story. I don't think about structure too much. I'll deal with that when we actually start to, when I put it into script format, but just write it loosely, like what's happening, so I do and then that way I can get into my own weeds, I can get into character details and all of that. So it's all written out first. And then usually I can write a first draft of a script in probably 3 or 4 days if I'm a couple of hours a day. I don't push too hard. I'm actually a fast writer, so I usually can do, maybe 1,500 an hour or something like that. So it's
wow.
Yeah, people are like, oh, you're speedy, but it's basically because once I'm going. And so then if anything, what I do, which I think writers maybe, it's a good tool that I picked up along the way, which is I write to time, not to page. So it's like I set a timer, and it's like, say, and I write first thing in the morning, because that's usually when I'm the least disturbed. There's no emails, nothing's bugging me. So I usually get up at stupid o'clock and just write for a couple of hours, and usually 2 hours. And then I don't let myself have breakfast yet, because once I have, that's the carrot at the end of the stick. I get to have breakfast after. And so I just write. And usually if it's a timer thing, sometimes I end up at like a part where I really get excited about. So then you're excited the next day. A lot of times when you're writing to page counter or something to that effect, sometimes you'll hit a speed bump. And then the next day you're like, oh, I don't want to do it because I'm starting on a speed bump. You know what I mean? And so it's almost like, whereas if the speed bump is in the middle of your writing session, you kind of make it over and it's okay.
Yep.
But when you start with it, it becomes this impassable thing that it's like, oh, I don't want to touch it. And then you take a day off, you take 2 days off, and then you don't get back to it. And it's just this insurmountable thing, or it's just that blinking cursor that can't get you past to whatever it is. And I do actually still handwrite a lot. Short stories. Was really lucky to have a short story finally published in a real book, you know. Just like,
Wow,
and so I do write every
congratulations.
so often. Thank you. It's yeah, it's somewhere along the way. And of course now my brain is blanking. But it was actually about my grandmother, and so I wrote this sort of like a gothic story about yeah, some stuff in my family that I sort of fictionalized. But
Hmm.
I write by hand still. So there is something about your brain and
Yep.
writing longhand, right? And then
Yep.
it's actually, weirdly enough, I think it's oldies like us, and still cursive. So we're really fast in cursive. And I
Yes.
realize it's like I'm faster. I realize afterwards it's like, wow, did I ever write a lot in a short amount of time? And it's like, yeah, because I'm still, you know, like it's a skill set. It's like writing shorthand. Do
Absolutely.
people still do that, shorthand? Don't think so.
Maybe. I'm not
We
sure.
I think there was a course I didn't take in high school. Is under keyboarding. I think they taught shorthand or something like that. Like, remember we had a keyboarding, like,
I do. I
who
failed
was
it.
so, did
Failed
you? I didn't
keyboarding.
take it. I was like, oh,
Totally.
what was it? Just speed typing? Was that it, or what
They were
was?
just teaching us how to type. Miss Rose was not my fan. Yeah, and I failed it. I was like, come
No
on. Of
way.
all the things, yeah. I'm actually a very good typer now, but like, no, I
Oh,
sucked.
that is
Yeah.
so funny. I
Yeah.
knew it was yeah, just people took that. I was always amazed by it. So
Well, I thought
yeah.
it was an easy credit. Alas, it was not. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I thought that about my first year of weather and climate. Not easy. I like that was supposed to be my science, like my science requirement in BU, and people said take weather and climate. I was like, yeah, that should be good. It was not easy. Anyway.
All those things that surprise us. For aspiring women filmmakers or writers in horror, what's the most important lesson that you've learned and you wish you'd known earlier?
I think the most important thing is just to not follow what people are telling you that you need to do. One of those things was like you need to brand yourself, or who are you? Like just defining yourself earlier than you are. Uh, it's sort of it's very limiting to do that. I think you just have to write stories that are really true to yourself, and that, like one of the first questions I always ask other writers and filmmakers when I see them in panels, and like, what inspired this story? I always want to know the origin of it. And I kind of want more than just I saw this thing or I had an idea or whatever it is. I always want, like, where did it hit you emotionally that you wanted to tell the
Hmm.
story? Like, what was the thing? And usually you can see that. And yeah, that's the best place to start, especially for the first few pieces that you write that really are the things that are kind of your firstborns.
Right on. We have, at the close of our show, we like to do what I call a rapid fire. It's based on James Lipton of the Actors Studio. Do you know
Yes,
this one? Yeah.
I
So
do.
it,
Okay.
it is a modification, but
Okay.
um, just a few questions. So if you're open to it, I'll fire them off, and you can. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Okay.
What is your favorite word?
I always said moist.
Okay.
It's not moist. That was because that's usually your grossest word, right?
Yeah.
Moist. Yeah. Anyway, I'll just stick with it then.
Okay. What's your least favorite word?
Well, then I had to go back to that. I think vanity,
Hmm. What turns you on?
honesty, humor,
What turns you off?
ego,
What sound or noise do you love?
a cat purr.
Hmm. Me too. What sound or noise do you hate?
Jackhammers.
What is your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
I'm with you. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I've attempted so many at this point.
Me too.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, maybe go back into fashion.
Yeah.
Mm.
What profession would you not like to do?
Law.
Fair enough. Fair enough. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you reach the pearly gates?
You made it.
And
that's
finally,
what Mr. Henderson said to me, by the way, on graduation.
Really?
Yeah.
You made it. Really?
Yeah. It was a weird thing to say. I was like, I'm on honor roll. Why wouldn't I? But he said, you made it. And I thought, see, it stuck with me. It's a weird thing.
It's interesting. Yeah. I was not on honor roll. I was grateful to have made it.
But it was a weird thing for Mr. Henderson to say. It was like, excuse me?
Okay, absolutely. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonder what he was thinking.
Now I think Mr. Henderson's God.
And the final question, what does strong like a girl mean about you?
I think it always means being true to myself.
Yeah. Really good. Oh, and here's Molly back for a second visit.
Hi, Molly. Speaking of being true to herself, she's gorgeous. She sent photos.
Gets her out of trouble. Gets her out of trouble.
She's got the most. Yeah, she's lovely. Yay.
Thank you very much, Karen. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate you coming on, and I wish you all the best.
I can't believe we
had
our reunion on Zoom or on this platform.
I know, it's crazy. 37 years later, like wacky. I know, wacky.
But you look exactly the same. So I like it. But with like really with better hair. We all had weird hair back in the day.
The hair. The hair.
Yeah, you still
this
have
is
great
small
hair.
hair.
After all.
Oh well, thank you. Ditto. Yeah. Ditto.
We have hair.
We have hair. Well, yeah, especially coming through menopause. You bet it is. Yeah, not everybody keeps it. Find out more about my pal Karen Lam in the show notes or at stronglikeagirlpodcast.ca. I want to encourage you to check out some of her films as well, and thank you very much for listening.